I just want to say before we get started that I feel like women should go 50-50. And
oh my God. Oh my gosh. It's not, you guys, this isn't that type of podcast.
Right.
I'm actually like very nervous and anxious about, I don't know if nervous is the right word, but just kind of like, there's
I'm
a lot
a regular
of
person.
Yeah.
I stub my toe at night.
I know,
I'm not
and
no celebrity. You don't have to be nervous.
And I feel like I know you well. And so this is I'm in a really unique position to actually have this conversation with you about entrepreneurship and your journey, because I've known you for almost 20 years now. I can't believe it's been that long, but I've seen you in so many different...
since I was like 6.
Anyways, sure. But I've seen you in so many different phases of like entrepreneurship. I mean, I've known Mackie the rapper. I have known... yes, I remember Twerk.
Oh, shit.
I remember when Mackie was in his fashion bag. You're still in your fashion bag, low key.
Kinda,
like
yeah,
you don't necessarily like pull it out a lot, but you know that's kind of. I think that's how we met. I can't recall exactly, but
I don't remember how we met.
Well, I know we were both in this like College of Human Sciences, I think, and so I think we had similar majors, so we were in that space. But I've also known you to, you do design, you do videography, so. I kind of want to just start with asking you, like, as you have become the founder of Black Spades and now the Blk App, how did you know out of all your entrepreneurial ideas that Black Spades was the one that you should pursue?
I didn't know. I think what me is, first and foremost, I'm a creative, like I'm an artist. So I just want to create. So, and on top of being an artist and creative, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. So I just kind of go with...
You've never had like a real job. Well, you've had a job before, but not like...
I haven't had like a
It's been
job,
at least 17 years, I feel like.
Yeah, I haven't had a job where I worked at... After graduation, I worked at Joann Fabric for like a month or two.
Okay.
And I haven't had a job since then. That was like 2010. And then before that, I hadn't had a job since 2004, 2005, maybe. So yeah, I haven't really had a job. So I just want to do what I want to do. And I'm an artist and I just want to create. And so what happens is if I feel like making a dress, I'm gonna make a dress. If I feel like writing a song, I'm gonna book a studio session. So I just do what I feel like doing. It's just that Black Spades was the thing that I felt like doing, and it took off. And I was like, oh shoot, this is moving far easier than other things that I pursue, is making me more money than a lot of other things that I pursue more easily. And so I was seeing just doors opening up, and I said, okay, this must be what I need to be doing. So I just kind of went with that flow.
And then like I remember the process of like when you went to Egypt and everything to kind of study the artistry and hieroglyphics and to learn a little bit more about designing that. Like, is there ever a point where you're like, should I go deeper with this? Should I go a different direction? Or
I'm malleable. So I always have a vision of what it is that I want to do, but I always keep myself malleable enough to make an adjustment or a pivot if I need to. So I guess that's answering your question, but yeah, I try not to be so focused on what it is that I think that stuff should be that I miss out on what it's supposed to be.
And
that makes sense.
What has like running the business told you that it's supposed to be? Like what insights have you learned like that has surprised you in running like the card side of the business? Because we're going to get into the app side because of course I have an app idea. But what has like running that side of the business taught you?
I guess on that side of the business, on the playing card side, fortunately, most of my projections and most of the things that I wanted to do were right. So I haven't really had any big major pivots outside of, in terms of the direction of the company, outside of, creating Blvcker. What I can say is that Black Spades taught me a lot about business from a standpoint of, I didn't realize how much I didn't know about money and how money works and how many financial tools that we have at our disposal to make life easier. I didn't know. I grew up poor.
Like what type of tools?
So for example, my former partner, when I started Black Spades, I was living in an apartment in Orlando When I got that apartment, my former partner had just got his house, had just bought his house. Former business partner. When I'm saying partner, I'm talking about a former business partner.
You gotta clarify.
Yeah, former business partner.
You gotta clarify.
It ain't nothing. Former business partner. So he had just bought a house at the same time or around the same time that I got that apartment. And so I had created Black Spades. He was in the business at that point, and we were having a conversation about him getting a home equity line of credit. And I was like, I had never heard of that. And I was like, well, what is that? So he's like, basically, it's like a credit card. Think of it like a credit card. I'm about to get $90,000 that I could just spend for whatever, and I pay it back, and that money's back against the equity of my house. And I'm like, well, how much did the house like gain? Like, how much equity? And so he said it was something like, I can't remember what the number was, but it was like 100,000, 150,000, something like that of equity that he had gained in his house in that 3 years. And I was like, yo, I'm going to get a $500 security deposit back from living here in 3 years. And you essentially made $100,000 to just exist in the house. And on top of that, you got a 3-bedroom house with a 2-car garage, and you're paying less in mortgage than I'm paying in rent. And it made me realize, like, man, I've been hustling backwards. So that's one of the things that I learned is, like, had I bought a home, I could have had more money that I could have put into the business. But outside
especially
of that,
how them houses were selling in Orlando, like,
oh,
what was this, like 10 years ago? Because I lived in Orlando around that time, too. And they weren't, in retrospect, like, at the time, I was like, oh, that's kind of pricey. In retrospect, they were giving houses away.
Oh, no, but see, here, he lived here. I lived in Orlando. So it was even
better
cheaper.
Here.
Yeah, it was even cheaper. So, you know, I was just like, dang, all these years, because I'm thinking about it, I got my first apartment at like 19. So this was like 2002. Or, no, I was 18 in 2002. I got my first apartment in 2003. So I was 19. And so I was like, at this point, I had been renting apartments for like 20 years at this point, or something like that. A little over 20 years or something. And so I was like, man, I could have paid a house off by now.
Yep.
But my logic was I had to stay in the house. I didn't, well, back then Airbnb didn't exist. So naturally we were thinking you had to live in the house, and I was traveling.
You can't go nowhere. You stuck.
Yeah. So I learned things like that. And I also learned, like, once Black Spades started making money, like for real money, like money I had never seen before, I started realizing, like, man, the more money you make, the more money it takes to keep it. And it's like, whoa,
everything.
My goodness.
Yeah.
See, in my mind, I was just like, I need more money. I'm going to just come up with an idea and sell something and, like, make the money.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the credit or anything like that. But just running Black Spades really made me understand, like, man, it's a lot about money that I didn't understand, you know, and, like, tools that you could use to, like, maximize your money. Because making money ain't enough. You got to know how to making the money is the easy part.
How to maintain it, how to grow it. Well, that said, I kind of want to transition into Blvcker, and like, at what point, you mean you're learning all these lessons about money, about running a business, but at one point did it dawn on you that I need to transition into the digital space and that I need to make an app?
So,
well, first let's talk about what Blvcker is. Like, we know what Black Spades is, you know, custom design, playing cards for the culture, but what is Blvcker?
So I'll go with Black Spades first. So Black Spades, for those of you that don't know, is a lifestyle brand. We sell apparel and electronics, but everybody knows us for playing cards that are designed for spades. So you mentioned Egypt, our playing cards are ancient Egyptian themed. So the faces have ancient Egyptians on it. And depending on the deck that you get, they have, like, they're black, they're brown skin. Not saying that they're not black in the other decks. They just don't have the skin tone colored in. So Blvcker is essentially it's better to think of it as a platform than an app, but it's a spades platform where you can send messages, you can add people as friends, you can renege in the app. We're working on the feature where you can learn how to play in the app. We're working on the feature where you can stream games so that other people can watch and get downs and comment while you play. So essentially it's just one really dope spades app where you can actually play spades the way that we play spades in the Black community. You can choose if you want to play Joker, Joker, Deuce, Deuce, or Ace High. So it's a really well thought out, robust spades platform. So that's pretty much it on the surface level. Yeah.
Okay. And what point did you realize you needed the app or needed the platform?
Well, so at some point in my entrepreneurial journey, because, you know, before Black Spades, I have I have Dope Heart Media, which is a creative agency. So I have been doing Dope Heart since 2011, 2012. And so I have been working with like all these different brands and celebrities and all of that. And I was really trying to think about, when I first started it, I was making like $30 for a flyer, and that just was not cutting it. I was like, how do I get to make more money from, per client? And I realized I got to fire these clients that I have right now and get higher paying clients. So I raised my rates. And that was painful at first. Then I'm starting to get, thousands of dollars per client, or actually hundreds of dollars per client. And I was like, this still ain't enough. I need to get thousands. So then as it grew, I'm working with brands now. Now I'm getting thousands to tens of thousands per client. And what I realized was the people that really make money are not buying and selling services. They're buying and selling companies. And so my mind started to shape because a lot of my clients were like Twitter and Google and, these big tech companies. And I'm being flown to San Francisco and New York, and I'm going to like their offices, and I'm seeing how everything runs. And I'm realizing like, oh crap, technology is only becoming more and more a part of our lives. I have this idea that the people that's really making the money are buying and selling companies, not services or their time. If I want to make this type of money, if I want to do the next thing, which is like getting the millions, I need to be positioning myself to make that type of money, or, operate in that way. And so what I realized was that, over the years of doing different businesses, that if your business is not evolving, it's going to die. So I said, okay, I have to figure out a way to get into technology or I'm going to get left behind. So the app was kind of the next thing.
So what was your first step? I know like you're non-technical. I feel like you're much more tech savvy than most people though. Like
I'm realizing that now.
I like to say like you're the type of person who's like makes everything like figure outable. Like
right.
Like anything, everything's like a YouTube video away, essentially. But you're more technical than most people, but you're still non-technical.
Right.
So in doing this and thinking through, okay, I need to build an app now. I need to build this platform. What was the first step you took? And would you take that step again?
Well, so actually, truth be told, I didn't want to build an app at first. Okay. I'm not going to say what I wanted it to be because, I'll go ahead.
Just tell me.
No,
we hear now.
I'm not saying for you. I'm just saying for people out there. I want nobody to try to get it before me, but it don't matter. Y'all want to, with a camera app, y'all want to compete with me? Go ahead. We can do it. You could try. So originally I wanted it to be a video game. Okay. Because in my mind I was like, imagine black people playing spades on a PlayStation and you got your headset on, cussing your cousin out from across the country. That's what I wanted, was a PlayStation, Xbox.
I don't see why it still couldn't
be. So what happened is I got my master's from Full Sail. Okay. Right. And Full Sail is a big gaming school, and also film and music, stuff
creative
like that.
School, creative art.
Right. So, and I had a good relationship with the people at Full Sail because I was like top at my graduating class, like literally top. So I reached back and I was like, hey, I want to get in contact with some of the people from the game design because I want to create a game. And then they connected me with them, and I went to like one of the game design conferences. It was digital at the time. Because of COVID type stuff or whatever, I think. Yeah. And so they basically advised me, you need to make an app first, prove the concept, and then you approach, these different like Sony and Microsoft about making it a game and getting on their platform. So that's why I made it an app. So sorry,
so you needed to have an MVP. So you need to have a proof of concept.
Right. They were telling me, they were advising me to do the app first because they said it would be cheaper, easier, faster, whatever. So what was the question you asked me?
So what was the first step you took? Which I guess you explained that, and like reaching out to your school or whatnot, and trying to reach out to the gaming program. Right. But what would you do slightly different about the process you took to start building this?
Knowing what I know now, I would have called you first, honestly. And I don't know what.
That's a good answer.
Honestly,
y'all hear that? He would have called me first.
No, for real. I would have called you first, but I don't know why it didn't occur to me to call you. I don't know why. I think we just
honestly like we've had a lot going on in this past year, and just like life be lifing,
Yeah, I would have called you first. Knowing what I know now, I would have called you first. But if I had the benefit of understanding how all this stuff works, like I do now a year ago, I would have called you, and I probably would have built my whole team from what's the name of that website?
Upwork.
Upwork. I probably would have built the whole team from Upwork. I would have built the team from Upwork. I would have had everybody work off of my space, off of my infrastructure, and not
like
transfer
your
stuff over.
Project management platform. Or,
Right. Like, you know, in my GitHub, you working on my GitHub, you working in my spaces, and not building it in your own and then transferring it over to me, so that way I have complete control over what's what. I would have been less hands off in terms of, I'll back up. So me, because of being a creative and working in the creative space and running Dope Art and everything, and Black Spades also, when I contract people, I typically make a design brief. I send the brief to the creative, and I'm like, hey, I need this, that. It needs to look like this, that. Bam, bam, bam. How much is it going to cost? They tell me, I pay them, and I forget about it. Mm-hmm. And I've been spoiled to have such a dope team that, like, one of my designers will tell me, yeah, it's going to take me 4 days or 5 days. And then in 2 days, it's done. And I'm like, oh, dope. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking this is how engineers work too. So I'm like, look,
it can be. And I will say it can be, but not always. And like,
I ain't meet one yet. I ain't meet one yet.
There are some safeguards that you have to put in place. Like, I feel like with developers, sometimes you just really luck up and you have people who like really will just work, and you don't have to watch them like that. They'll just pop up. I have a developer that I'm working with right now who's building me like a learning management system, and like he'll pop up like a week later, and I'm like, oh, you did all this work. I didn't have to check in on you. I had to hound you.
That would be beautiful.
But and this is a big but. There are a massive number of developers out there who you kind of have to stay on top of, because I feel like they have an incredible amount of technical talent, but it's often the work ethic, the communication skills, the interpersonal skills,
not there,
and they just often do not know how to run and operate a business.
Right.
I think that is probably the biggest thing, is that they are meant to be developers. And like, I've had people come through my program before who have been developer technical talent, and they say, you know, no one's ever taught me how to build a business around my skills. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of people jump in with 2 feet when they want to become, you know, run an agency, or they want to like have a freelance business or something like that. And they don't think about all the intangibles surrounding building a business and what it takes to like provide a good client experience. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of them do want to provide it, but they just don't know how and don't know where to go to get that. So maybe that's my next thing, is teaching developers how to.
So one thing that I was blessed to get both, right? I was blessed to be talented and also have some business like acumen. So I was blessed to have both. Mm-hmm. And also I think my biggest, of all the things that I know how to do, I think the thing that I was blessed with most is I learned super fast, and I don't mind like learning. So where I didn't know as much stuff in business, it was not for me to just learn it. Or where I wasn't, things I didn't know about photography, I just learned it. Things I didn't know about design, I just learned it. Things I didn't know about, you know, whatever, I just learned it. But what I realized over the years is that business is its own skill. Yeah. It doesn't matter how good of a hairstylist you are. You could be the dopest hairstylist in the city and not have any idea how to run a business. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to have no clients, or you're going to have very unhappy clients. You can be the most mediocre hairstylist in the city and have all the work, you know? So, that's something that I learned. And so, in learning that, I realized that not all talented people are cut out to be entrepreneurs. Some people are just meant to be, and I hate to say that, but some people, I don't want to say meant to be, because I believe everybody can be an entrepreneur. Some people have a mindset that will restrict them to employment. Yeah. And no matter how much they want to do their own thing, until they break out of that mindset, that employee mindset, they're better off as employees. And so when I started working with this developer, I was working with a developer assuming that this developer was operating at the level that I operate at, and that I could entrust him and say, okay, tell me how much it is, I'm gonna pay it and I'm gonna forget about it. Or tell me how much it is, I'm gonna chip away at it. And then I was expecting like that. The same type of communication that I get from my designers or from my team, but that wasn't what it was. So like looking back, I would have been a little bit more hands-on, and let's say I get $5,000 today that I can put toward the project. I would not put that $5,000 toward the project. That will stay in my account, and then I will breadcrumb them until I get the work done, or until I find out that I can entrust you with that type of money up front to get it done.
So do you mind, because I feel like we might need to give some like context into like what went wrong with your development process. It sounds like poor business management, poor communications, but you just alluded to like the money.
Right.
So what happened with the money that you would like give a red flag to people who are thinking about starting the app and be like, this is something that happened to me and I don't want it to happen to you?
So first and foremost, I have to take responsibility for my ignorance of the process. So before I blame anybody else, I have to take responsibility as an entrepreneur to say I jumped into something that I didn't know what I was doing, and I was figuring it out as I went along. So I don't think that it is my responsibility to know what I'm doing. And if I jump into this particular business and I get taken advantage of, yes, shame on that person for taking advantage of me. But I can't grow if I just blame them and not say I should have known, I should have, So what originally happened was I didn't know that I was supposed to be getting, what do you call it?
Statement of work.
A statement of work that outlines, what I'm getting for what I pay for.
Right.
I just thought, hey, we have this meeting. I'm telling you what the app is that I want to build, and tell me how much it's going to cost. It's going to cost this much money. Originally, I was told that it was going to be between $3,000 to $5,000, and I was like, oh shoot, okay, yeah, I can do that easily. Yeah. So that's what I thought. So I think I paid $1,500, $2,500, something like that to get it started. And then I gave like the rest of the money, like the $3,000 or whatever. And then a month or two had passed, and I wasn't seeing anything. And I'm just like, well, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And then I was getting kind of strung along, like, oh, well, the devs are doing this and doing that and yada, 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 and blase squad. And so I think we started the process in October. By December, I still didn't have anything. Mm-hmm. And I had paid thousands of dollars, like at least like $3,000 to $4,000 by then or something like that. And so my birthday is in January. So I was like, oh, okay, you know what? I know that people support me. And if I did like a birthday slash launch party, I could probably get people to invest or donate money to help me fuel this along. So I went to him and I was like, hey, what do we need to do to have this thing ready by January? It's the beginning of December. And I was like, I need it by January, like 5th or 6th or something. He was like, yeah, we can do that. We can do a sprint and all of that. So then he comes back to me and he's like, yeah, it's going to be $8,000. And I'm like, wait, what? Right. So I was like, you told me $3,000 to $5,000. How did we jump to $8,000? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, do you mean 8,000 in total or 8,000 more? And so he's like, no, 8,000 more. And I'm like, then what did I pay you for originally? And he was like, oh, well, for design. Now, sidebar, I designed the app. So
remember, I've known this man as a designer. Right. I know him as, a videographer, as a creative. So Mackie is well equipped to design his own stuff.
Yeah, I designed it because I knew how I wanted it to look, and I didn't want to take a chance with their designers. Yeah. The only thing was I didn't understand how to work in Figma. So what I did was I designed everything in Photoshop, and I sent it to his team to just replicate in Figma, and they did an excellent job. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not an app designer, so they knew, okay, the buttons need to be here. This doesn't make sense. Take this out. So they did a phenomenal job there. But he was like, oh, well, that was for design. And I'm like, I'm paying you $3,000 to $5,000 for design, and I've already designed it for me to design it. And he was like, yeah, and it was some back end stuff too. And so you need all this. And so essentially, he was saying that I needed to come up with $8,000 within like 2 weeks. And I was like, bro, that's just not even How much? No.
Like,
you know what I'm
it's
saying?
just unreasonable. I feel like if he would have told me, I would have been like, do you even hear yourself? Like,
right.
Like if someone told you had to come up with $8,000
in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks to finish a project, and there's this urgent timeline, like even if you had it, like you would be uncomfortable with that.
Right. So it was $8,000 to get it done in that month, which I felt like I could probably do $8,000 in a month. I felt confident that I could come up with $8,000 in a month. But to try to come up with it in 2 weeks, I was like, bro, that just don't. Right. And the majority of the way that I planned on coming up with it was at the event, was like to raise the money at the event. And so I was like, well, look, I don't have that much. I will give you what I have to get started. Let's break it up over the week. So he was like, okay, well, $2,000 a week. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I think I gave him the first $2,000. As we were coming up into the second week, he came to me and was like, oh, I don't think we're going to have this done in time. So what we'll have is a clickable demo. And I'm like, bro, we've been working on this since October. Like what?
We're essentially at the place like where we started, right?
Right.
Like if
I still hadn't seen anything.
Right. If I've done the designs, right, and I've sent it over to your dev team, so your graphic developers, at a minimum, I should have had a clickable prototype back then, right?
And I didn't know what a clickable prototype was at the time. This is my first time ever hearing that. So I was just like,
well, let's recap, right? Let's recap right now. Let me tell you how this process should have gone, right? So you mentioned a statement of work, which is a document that a developer will provide to you that outlines the details of your project, right? So the developers will break down every feature that you need included in your app. And then they break them down by milestones. And those milestones kind of operate in these things called sprints, where like typically are like these 2-week periods in which they're doing works and they're completing these milestones. And then they say, okay, well, I think I'm going to do all of these things during this period. And then at the end of this sprint, we will evaluate all those milestones. And if everything works as properly, you'll release some additional money. So a part of this was okay in that, like, okay, you gave them the $1,500 to start the project. Where I think they failed, and they kind of, I don't know if they were intentionally trying to take advantage of you or if it was just poor business practices, is giving you a very ambiguous statement of work, overview of the project that wasn't broken down by milestones. And I think it did put you at a position of disadvantage, because then they can come back and say, well, we're actually not finished, and that was just part one, right? Now we need something else.
Right. And which is what ended up happening. And so, I was not familiar with the concept of working off of milestones, just because on the creative side, if I get hired to do a video or shoot a video, I'm going to shoot the video. I'm going to get a shot list. They're going to tell me what they need. I'm going to edit it, send it on through. That's done.
Now, does that, like, has this process impacted the way you done other types of businesses now? Like, if someone was to give you, like, a videography gig right now, would you start operating it in milestones based on?
Because it's not
required for that.
Yeah, it's
industry.
Not practical for. The only time I guess you would work on like a milestone type of thing is like if it's an ongoing project where somebody is like hiring you to shoot multiple things. So maybe you get some campaign that you're shooting for somebody, and it incorporates multiple different types of videos. So one day we're going to do an event recap. Then we're also going to shoot X amount of social pieces of content. Then, maybe like a commercial, something like an ad or something. Maybe milestones there, but we don't really work in milestones. It's like, this is the project. This is what needs to be done. This is how much it costs. You negotiate how the payment is going to be. Some people take a deposit, and the rest at the end, I get paid up front, and then I just do it and send it. And so the milestone thing was just unfamiliar to me. It was
foreign to you.
Yeah, it was foreign to me, because it's just like, it doesn't matter how complex the video project is or how complex the design project is. I've already scoped out the work. I've already figured out it's going to take this much work for me to do. I'm going to anticipate this many revisions. I'm going to just charge you for all that up front. You're going to pay me up front. I'm going to knock it out, send it to you. We're going to go back and forth with a couple of tweaks, and the job is done. And I expected the app process to be the same way, ignorantly. I'll say, because this is not how that works at all. But that's on me. I should have known. Instead of assuming it of how it was supposed to work.
Well, I mean, but you can say, I mean, hindsight's 20/20, right? Like you say, you should have known, but like everyone went through this process. At least like when they're building the app, like a big part of me being here and writing my book and we're doing this podcast is because my first experience is very similar to yours. I did not know what the heck I was doing. And I thought, because like you, like I'm a little bit more technical than most people, I could figure it out. Like everything is figure outable, right? But then I got into it and I'm losing, you know, tens of thousands of dollars because I'm just like, I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
Right. And so for me, this was like, in creating my program and writing my book, is just like, you know, I went through that so other people don't have to now. And I'm hopeful that in the future, people can navigate this process with a little bit more ease and foresight into what's to come. So.
Right.
So I wanted you to go back to your story. So the $8,000, the $2,000 a week, he says it's not going to be ready, clickable prototype.
Yeah.
Then what?
So I was upset because I'm like, look, I done promoted this thing and people already RSVPing, and you telling me I'm not going to have a project. I think by that time I had a few people that had invested. By that point. And I remember feeling like, man, I have a reputation of saying I'm going to do something and then doing it and showing that I did it.
And that shit sucks. Like that, especially when like, because when it's contingent upon just you, you know you're going to show up. You know you're going to deliver. But when what you need to deliver is contingent upon somebody else who's moving funny, it's the worst feeling.
Yeah, it is. And so I'm just feeling like the reason why people that don't know me, I'm an activist too. So like I really get involved in the community and I raise money for like elementary schools and high schools and like disaster relief and all this type of stuff. And the reason why people feel comfortable sending me the money is because they know I'm going to do what I say that I'm going to do. And then I show what I've done with the money. And so the same thing when we start talking about investors, these are my friends. You know, these are my friends. These weren't like people putting up 50 grand and, you know, something like that. It was this friend put up $1,000. This friend put up $2,500. This friend put up $500. This friend put up $200, whatever, right? And so these are my people that believed in me and entrusted in me. And so I just felt, I was pissed. I was upset because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do what I said that I was going to do. People were expecting this. Now, fortunately, I had spoken to, why is my brain not working today?
It's been a long week. And
Goodness
it's so
gracious. I spoke to somebody else and they told me, no, Mackie, this is part of the process. A clickable demo is still a demo. Like it is still a demo. It's just, you know.
Yeah. I mean, a clickable demo is fine, right? It's just, it's just not acceptable for where you were in the process and how much you had spent.
And what I was
anticipating.
Yeah. And so, you know, then I calmed down. We got through that event. Everybody loved the event. And I was like, oh, okay, it's cool. And then what I realized is that people that are investing, for the most part, are not expecting stuff to just be like that all the time. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I can chill because this is also the first time that I really ever took on investors. So I was like, oh, okay, I can breathe. Like I don't have to put so much pressure on myself to have it done. But that wasn't done at that point. He told me, yeah, in about 5 weeks, we'll have an app that you can play and, you know, people be able to download it 5 weeks from January.
And where were you 5 weeks from January?
5 weeks from January, I was in the exact same spot that I was in
Yikes.
In January. Nothing had been done. Nothing got done until I want to say, was it May? Around May, I think it was. And it only got done then because I called you. And I was like, hey, so I got this guy that is building an app for me, and I don't know what I don't know. I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. Are you willing to sit in on this next meeting that I have with him to make sure this dude ain't getting over on me? Because what ended up happening was he was telling me that in order to get the rest of the app done, I needed to pay him more money. Now, what I didn't realize at the time was that I had already paid him off. Like I had already paid more than the $8,000.
Yeah, paid in full and some.
So I had paid the original I can't remember how many thousand it was. It was between like 2,000 and 4,000 before December. I had already paid him. Then it was his extra 8,000 that he said to have the app built. And I still didn't have anything, and we were like in May. Like I had nothing except the clickable demo. That was it. And I'm like, man, why is this taking so long? It was only supposed to be 4 weeks in December. Now we're all the way in May, and he said 5 weeks from January. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, why is it taking so long? I got you involved, and then
I remember we had the call, and I was just like, Mackie, I think he's borrowing from Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
Like, you know, a lot. He's got an outsourced team. This team is, you know, spearheading the project. And I actually do think that the team overseas was building the project, right? But I think from what I gathered from those phone calls is, one, he was just, you know, not necessarily, I don't like using the word manipulative, because I really think he's just a bad business practitioner.
No, it was manipulation too.
Okay.
I'll say it.
Okay.
I ain't scared to say it. I felt like he was being manipulative from the beginning.
And but you know, I don't know if people, because I say that, and I think my pause in saying that is that I don't know if people like that go into the business, and I think this is a debate I constantly have, not just with developers, but just with people who run businesses in general. Like, do they go into these businesses and, you know, pick up clients to scam them, or do they just find themselves fumbling again and again, and then they just like, well, I'm just gonna take it and keep going, right? Like, right. I don't know if the man necessarily is like, I'm out here just trying to run an agency that scams people. But
right. No, I'm not gonna call him a scammer.
No.
I don't think that he was trying to scam, but I do think that he was being manipulative, and I think
Fair.
that you can be trying to do
the right thing,
legit business, and still be manipulative. And what I mean by manipulative is, like, when I get on the phone with him, I'm cool. I'm a cool dude, but I'm trying to talk business, and I don't really give a crap about the pleasantries. So I'm like, hey, where are we with the app? We'll talk about the app for like 2 minutes, and then it gets into this chummy, yeah, you know, my son did this and my daughter did that. And I'm like, that's beautiful, but bro, we talking about the app.
Yeah.
And so what I realized was happening is I talk a lot, but I pay attention a lot. So I pay attention while I'm talking. And sometimes I play dumb, because when you play dumb, people kind of tell who they are.
They telling themselves.
Right? So I play dumb. Like, I don't know, like, you know, I'll play dumb, or I'll act like I don't understand what's going on when I do, just to see how far people go. And what I was realizing is that I wasn't getting questions answered, and that he would talk his way around things to kind of make you forget about the question that you asked. But I ain't forget. I know exactly what I asked you. And I know that you didn't answer the question. And so I think the frustration that I had was that he knew that I didn't know about certain things, right?
And so he was throwing out like big words.
Right. And that's where the manipulation part comes in.
It's very technical terms and things like that. And, you know, Mackie was very clear, like, you know, on the calls, I'm not sure what that means. Could you explain what that means? And then he would talk in another circle, right? And I think ultimately what was happening was that, like, he was kind of playing both sides in the sense, and this is just my prediction. I don't know this to be 100% true, but I think he is based here domestically. He was outsourcing a lot of the work to a team abroad. I do believe that the team abroad was doing a considerable portion of the work. However, he wasn't paying them. And I think they probably kept having to stop and start because they're not getting paid, right? And so he's just collecting the checks for you, not sending it over. And so they're getting screwed over too, right? And he's in the middle, supposed to be the business manager and providing you with insights and managing the process. And he's just giving you a clusterfuck of an experience.
Right. So now also I will say that on the payment side, it wasn't like I'm paying him consistently every time. I'm paying him as I'm raising the money. So I'm like, hey, bro, he sent me an invoice, and I'm like, I don't have this whole invoice. Can I give you this much? Let me raise this much. I got a meeting with an investor. I'll come get the other part. That was what it was negotiated from the beginning, because I was like, you know, let me break this up.
And I'll add to that part is that is relatively normal. I won't say, you know, everyone who's doing this process is like raising in the process like that. That is kind of an anomaly, but like the milestone process and releasing tranches of funding, like per milestone, is meant to protect both the developer and the client, right? And oftentimes we look at it as just a method to protect us, but it protects the developer too, because if at some point you just don't have the money to pay anymore, they don't have to do any more work, right? They can stop at that milestone, right? Or at some point you're unsatisfied with the work, you could say, hey, we've gotten this far, give me my code. I don't need to pay any more of the tranches of funding. But like when you pay people all up front or all on the end, it just doesn't work out in anyone's favor.
Right. So he told me, I was under the impression that, if an invoice was for $2,000 and then I sent him $1,000, I'm under the impression that they're continuing to work. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what he was telling me.
And that's how it should be, right? Like even if you pay fractionally, they anticipate. Many developers, if you just tell them, hey, I'm going to pay $1,000 here, I'm going to pay $1,000 next week. Are you okay with that? Sure. Right. They're going to work up to 1,000 hours. Right. Or not 1,000 hours, but up to $1,000 worth of work. And then they're just going to say, okay.
And stop.
That's it.
And stop until you pay the rest. So I was like, okay, that's what I originally thought that it was going to be. But then he was like, no, I'm going to keep them working. And I'm like, oh, man, I really appreciate that. And I was happy because I'm like, dang, he really down for me.
He looking out.
On my team. Because at the same time, it's like after, and I don't know if I'm even getting picked up right now, but at the same time, it's like after you spent a certain amount of money, it should be clear this project ain't getting abandoned. Yeah. Like, it should be clear this person is serious about what it is that they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to worry about it, right? So, for example, my designer, one of my designers for Black Spades, because I don't design everything. I have a couple different designers that work on different things, and I work on certain things depending on what is being designed is who gets the project. So I have both of those designers been with me from the beginning, so it's over 5 years. One of the designers, I was just tallying up how much money he made with me since the start. I'm like, I done paid this man tens of thousands of dollars in design over the years. And like, I've watched their families grow. Like, he has a child now that didn't exist when we started.
Yeah, I have a designer like that too. And I actually have like his like Christmas card magnet up on my refrigerator. And like every time people come over my house, I'll be like,
who's these people?
Who are these people? And I'm like, that's my boy Steve. I paid Steve tens of thousands of dollars. He's family now.
Right. And so, it's now to the point where with him, I'll have a project that we need to work on, and I'll be like let's say Intuit ordered some decks, to get some decks made. So I'll say, hey, we got a project. The client wants it this, that. I know what his rate is going to be. I ask him anyway, just in case it goes up, but I know what he's going to charge me. And I'm like, yeah, I need you to send me a payment link so I can go ahead and just pay it and get it over with. I'm at the point now where I don't even deal with the deposit. I'm like, just send me the whole payment and I'm going to just pay you up front because we've worked so long that I know I'm going to get it. Yeah. I know I'm going to get what I need and I don't worry about it. He's at the point where we've worked so long that he won't even send me a payment link. He waits till it's done. And I'm like, bro, no, please send me that link at the beginning. Like, I don't want to keep this money. Right. Like, I don't want to spend it. Just let me get it out of my hands and to you. But what I'm saying is, like, it comes a point where you've worked with somebody for so long and done so much business where you have that rapport or that level of trust that you know who the person is. I know when I call him, it's going to be done and it's going to be dope. I know it. And I know for the one or two times that I was like, oh man, this is dope, but it's not the right direction, it's going to get corrected. He knows he don't got to worry about money with me. Like, he knows to the point that like, he's like, hey bro, here's the design. Like he sends me designs before I even paid him. Like, that don't happen in this world. If
only everything could work that way.
Right. So
do you think, and not to interrupt you, but like, do you think that there is an ethics problem in the development world, in the tech and startup development world?
I don't know that I have enough experiences to speak on the world itself outside of like, what I know of it. So I don't want to say about
integrity problem.
I don't want to talk about the world of it because I don't think I'm experienced enough to say that, to speak that broadly. But I know in my particular position, I think that it was some questionable ethical things that happened. it's not. I don't think that he's a bad guy. I don't think that the person I was working with is a bad guy, at all. I just think that, like you said, I don't think that he has the experience in business. And from not having that experience in business, it led to him trying to cover his tracks, as opposed to just being straight up and being like, hey, Mackie, XYZ happened. Can you do XYZ? Can I get a little bit more extra time? Because had he been transparent, we would have been like, oh, okay, cool, no problem, and just work forward. But it's just the thing that I feel like is a questionable ethics in the questionable ethics part to me, and the manipulation part to me is not being transparent and not saying, hey, this happened. What do we do here? XYZ, you know? So that's kind of my opinion on that. But I don't know. I can recognize that it's an issue, in the industry for founders that are not technical, that have to depend on technical people. I know it's a huge issue. Whether or not it's a problem ethically with people trying to take advantage, I don't know. I just think maybe people don't know how to run a business, or don't know, how to serve a customer.
For sure. Okay, so we've gone through the horror story. Where is the app at now? Like, where is it as far as development is concerned? What are next steps for it? What can we anticipate next from it?
Well, right now we are in test flight.
Okay.
And I feel like we're trapped
in
test flight. So test flight is basically I guess you can call it like a platform that Apple has created that gives developers the ability to get feedback on their app from the general public, to make the app available before it's in the App Store, so you can get feedback and all that type of thing. And so right now it's kind of trapped in test flight, and I say trapped because when he delivered the code, he didn't deliver any instructions, So now
it
when
just
it came
keeps
time,
getting better. It's just
right.
like, if it's not one thing with this guy, it's another. Like, it's just very petty.
Right. So he did not deliver the instructions so that the next team can take it from there and build it. So now what I'm having to do is have the new team basically go through and figure it all out, and or just they may have to rebuild it. So that's where it is. Like, you can play it, you can compete on it, you can download it from the website blvcker.com, blvcker.com, and but it's just trapped
hard
in test
to navigate as far as like the coding is concerned, or at least this is what the developers are saying. That's what
they're saying that. So we want to work on the next
iteration of the app, but you got to figure out what you're building on.
So essentially what I was told is, like, we can't build on this because we don't know what's going on. So we need to know what's going on so that we know how to properly build on this. And so the new issue is I got another developer that came in to kind of save the day and clean it up. And now they essentially went MIA on me. And they were supposed to be leading the team. So I'm like, you know what? F that. I'm going to lead the team. And I have a team of a couple people that are like really, really, excited about the app and want to be a part of the app. And I feel like are committed to like just seeing it through, not focused on the money. And I'm like, hey, I really appreciate that. They're like, we know you got to raise the money. It's cool. I just want to see this thing work. And so now I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to step in and facilitate that and say, hey, here's all the code. Look at this. Tell me what it is that you need. What is it going to take to decipher this or build this back up from scratch? So, yeah, that's where we are now.
Okay. So you actually have the luxury of being in my program with Clark Atlanta. We're only a few weeks in, but can you share some of the insights that you've learned thus far from being in the program? Well,
I think a lot of the insights that I learned thus far are the things that I learned during this process.
By trial, by fire.
Right.
Learning the hard way.
I was in your course before I was in your course because a lot of things, too, you had already taught me coming in. So I think that one thing that I remember that stuck out that you talked about the different programming languages. I didn't know it was that many of them.
Yeah, and I just brushed at the surface.
I did not know that. And I also didn't know that, I forgot which one you said it was, but that Facebook created a programming language, or Meta.
React Native.
Yeah, I didn't know that React Native was Facebook's thing. Like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And it was also like a few other resources that you mentioned. I can't call off the top of my head. And I was like, oh, shoot. Okay, cool. But for the most part, I think that you had taught me a lot of the stuff that you're teaching at the point that we're at now. You had already taught me this stuff, or some bump that I already had along the way that I'm like, oh, yeah, definitely remember that. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad that, I mean, I know it's not too little too late. I feel like you still are taking insights away from it, but I'm glad that it can be like a soft landing pad for you to kind of get insights and to kind of affirm. And then you're doing it with a group of people now. So like you're not completely alone in this process. So.
Right. So, but not to take anything away from the program, people that join the program can expect to all the headaches that I was talking about now. The reason why I was saying I would have called you first is if I had called you first, or if I had been able to go through the program, I could have avoided this. So I had to learn this stuff. You know, me saying that like I had already learned this stuff could come across the wrong way. I didn't have to learn it that way. I could have just did it in your program and know. So now the people that are in the program that haven't gotten as far along as I have,
and haven't spent the time or the money and all that. The money is the big one, right?
Right. So thus far, from idea to where we are now, $30,000 has been put in this app. So the people in the program probably haven't spent that type of money in their app, and they probably wouldn't have to spend that type of money because they're going to get to know, okay, well, first of all, you need this statement of work. You need to be moving off of milestones. You need to pay like this. You need to expect that. This is what test flight is. This is what an APK is. These are things that you mentioned in the class that I had learned just from banging my head against the wall all this time. But if I had taken the class ahead of time, I wouldn't have had to lose this money or do all of that. You know, so, yeah, I want to make sure that I go back and I let people know just how valuable it is, and not they lose sight of how valuable it is because I said, oh, well, I knew that coming into it. It wasn't because I knew it. It's because I had to. Yeah, I had to. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up now, but I want you to kind of give everyone an opportunity to hear, like, where, I know you shouted it out before, but let people know what next steps are, where they can find you personally, and where they can find more about Blvcker.
Okay. So, you can find out more about me at Mackey Creates, Mackey Creates on Instagram. That is probably the easiest way to contact me, is on Instagram. Like, the easiest.
Can they slide in your DMs?
They cannot. I felt
like that was important to share. And knowing you, I feel like you got to give that caveat.
Yeah, nah, you cannot slide on my DMs. I am very single and I'm very looking, but I don't like. At the camera? I am very single. Oh, right there. I'm very single and I'm very looking, ladies. So,
but also don't slide in his DMs.
But don't slide on my DMs because I think it's a monstrous turnoff for women to shoot shots at me. Just like a bunch of pictures, and if I slide in your DM, that means I'm interested, and if I don't, that means we can just be friends. So, Mackey Creates is my personal page. From there, you can see the Blvcker Instagram and the Black Spades Instagram in the bio. To get to download Blvcker, just go to blvcker.com, blvcker.com. Download the test flight. After you download the test flight, come back to the site, download the app. You'll be able to play it if you have an iPhone. If you got an Android, what you doing with your life? I'm just kidding. But if you got an Android, just gotta wait because I can't let you get that APK. Yeah. Is that what else?
Any last words that you want to give to any aspiring app entrepreneurs out there?
The world needs what you have to offer, so do it. The world needs what you have to offer. Don't worry about not having the money. Don't worry about not having the knowledge. Don't worry about what you don't have. Focus on the thing that you do have. Focus on the thing that you do know and build off of that. Like you said earlier, like it's just a YouTube video away. Like all of this is on YouTube. So don't worry about what you don't have. If you had an idea for that app, it's probably a space for it. But like I was saying earlier, I'm always malleable. So be malleable because your idea may not be the best idea, or your idea may be a good idea that needs a tweak or an adjustment or a different audience or a different whatever. But I think that you should do it because the world needs what you have to offer.
Thank you, Mackie.
Thank you.